This is the Oukitel WP210, a $400 Android 15 smartphone from AliExpress with a 108 megapixel camera, 120 Hz AMOLED display, under-display fingerprint reader, and a battery so big it's making flagships cry. That, and it claims to be one of the toughest Android phones out there, but we shall see. Now on paper, this phone is built like a tank. It's IP68 rated and IP69K, meaning you can leave it under up to 1.5 meters of water for around 30 minutes or so. It's also dust resistant and shock resistant. You can literally use this phone as a hammer. And yet, for a rugged phone, it's actually surprisingly slim, just 13.7 millimeters across and around 311 grams in weight. That's seriously slim and light for a rugged phone. Compared to any other phone, it's a bit of a workout. They've even gone on to rate this for high pressure water jet, so do stay tuned to watch me blast this with a jet wash to find out if it's true, and also subscribe to watch me break more expensive tech, or in this case, potentially not. Now for this phone's most impressive feature, the battery life. 8,800 milliamp hours. Just let that sink in a little bit. In the real world, this phone can actually last up to around 2 days with typical usage, but what's even more impressive is the 20 hours of video playback time. It's almost worth considering this phone just as a travel phone for watching movies, especially when you can consider that it also reverse charges your devices, and it's actually slimmer and lighter than a lot of power banks currently on the market. Charging is 45 watts, 50% in around half an hour, full in just under 2 hours. Not world record fast, but decent, especially when you consider that most flagship phones these days don't even come with a wall socket. Now, if you were to consider this phone as a travel phone just for watching movies and playing games, we need to talk about the display. 6.7 inches, full HD plus AMOLED at 120 Hz. Scrolling is pretty silky, and the under-display fingerprint unlock has been quite reliable, to be honest, and you even get a really cool light-up animation when you use it. The downside to this phone's display is the brightness. Only 500 nits. So outdoors, if I'm honest, it does struggle. And on top of this, although 120 Hz on a mid-range phone coming in at just $400 is pretty damn impressive, there is a little bit of a catch. It uses 120 Hz PWM flicker to control the brightness. If you're sensitive to flicker, you might actually get eye strain at lower brightness. Indoors is absolutely fine, but outdoors the brightness isn't that amazing, and you do start to notice some of that flickering. Although that might seem like a major downside, I have to admit, indoors the display is moderately impressive. It looks really punchy, it's nice and vibrant, and videos look half decent on it. Certainly enough for watching movies on the go, but there is another catch to that, which I'll explain later. So let's just take a closer look at that design. You can pick a more subtle textured back, or you can even go bold with their forks leather red finish, which I actually really do like. On the left side, there's this bright red action button. By default, it launches your Google Gemini, so you just tap that and you can start chatting to your AI. It's a really nice touch, and you can even remap this button, which is a pretty flagship feature if I'm honest. Oukitel did go on to surprise me again here though. In the box you actually get a charger, a cable, and then even a plastic bumper case. This is absolutely unheard of these days. Most flagships just give you a bit of cardboard and a manual, but this gives you the full kit. And I have to say, I really do like the box. Forgetting about all the included goodies inside the box, let's just talk about the phone again. It's absolutely solid. It's metal all around the outside, which gives it this sort of premium feel. Quite a bit of button wobble on this though, so I'd question the build quality of this particular unit. These side buttons should really be nice and tight. At the base there is this easy pull-out SIM tray, so no need for a SIM tool to open this, which I really did appreciate. And then at the top right there, this is a fun one. This is actually an IR blaster for controlling things like your TVs and projectors. Really nice touch there. Now performance-wise, with a phone like this is where things start to get a little more interesting. It's powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 8200 paired with pretty fast RAM and very good storage. You get 12 gigabytes of real onboard RAM plus 24 gigabytes of virtual RAM, and then a massive 512 gigabytes of onboard storage with microSD card support for up to 2 terabytes. This again is flagship killing stuff. It handles all of your daily stuff with pretty much no issues at all. Scrolling and swiping seems pretty buttery to me. And then if you're into competitive gaming, things like PUBG will run absolutely fine. Short of Call of Duty on max settings, there's going to be very few games that this phone can't run. Outside of gaming and multitasking, connectivity is pretty stacked too. You've got Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.3, NFC for making payments on the go, and then 5G. So you've got a lot of the latest technology on what I consider a fairly cheap phone. Another area that's pretty interesting though is the cameras on the WP210. So very mixed opinions on this. The main lens is a 108 megapixel camera. The selfie camera is a 32 megapixel camera. And then yes, you also have a 2 megapixel macro lens. Daylight shots surprisingly solid, detailed and sharp, not flagship level by any means, but not bad either. Lower light scenarios, not my cup of tea, but usable for things like Instagram, and especially with AI editing these days, you can definitely get away with these photos. The macro lens though, not really seeing the point of it. I've seen a lot of phones do this, and it does always seem to be apparent in the mid to low range phones. For some reason, they just love putting a macro lens in there that aren't actually that great. When it comes to video though, that tops out at 4K 30 FPS, which is pretty respectable, but one thing I did notice was the severe lack of any type of stabilization. When you're walking around videoing with this thing, it really doesn't look that great. There's serious camera jitter, so you're gonna have to do something to that footage in post. Still, for $400, you do still get a really good suite of cameras on this phone, and the fact that it's got a 108 megapixel sensor on this is just absolutely mind-blowing. Moving away from cameras, let's talk about the software now. So obviously we're on Android 15, really nice, clean, simple interface, but there's no app tray, which I found pretty difficult to get used to, if I'm honest. Everything's just sort of scattered around. The big hiccup that I mentioned earlier though, that there's no Widevine L1 certification, which basically means that Netflix and Amazon Prime are stuck in SD quality and top out at around 480p, and there's no clear promise of updates that I can see. And unfortunately, this isn't uncommon for where this phone sits in the market. So whilst the hardware is actually pretty impressive, all things considered, the software is lagging behind a little bit in my opinion. Now, at the beginning of the video, I teased that I was going to blast this phone with a jet wash, and we're going to do just that, because a rugged phone isn't a rugged phone without some hardcore durability testing. But I have to say, for those of you who like to watch things break on YouTube, this is going to disappoint you. Even at close proximity, the WP210 stood up really well. Not a scratch from the jet wash, and absolutely no signs of any water damage, front or back. After I'd given it a good rinse, I then gave it a cheeky drop test from around 1.5 meters, and it just bounced off the patio. In fact, I actually think it did more damage to the patio, to the phone itself. Just a couple of minor scratches along the edge, which mostly just wiped off. So 10 out of 10 for durability, it really does live up to its claims. So what is my final verdict on this $400 phone? Should you buy an Oukitel WP210? And let's start off with the good bits. Overall, pretty decent performance, blurring the lines between budget, mid-range, and flagship phones. 2-day battery life is absolutely insane. And then you've got that rugged, but not a total brick look and feel. Massive storage with expandable options, NFC, an IR blaster, and then a 120Hz AMOLED display, and a surprisingly useful red action button. And then yes, a charger and case included in the box. The not so good is the outdoor brightness isn't great. The PWM flicker might bother some people. Camera focus can be a little bit inconsistent, and that stability when shooting videos is really something that bothered me. The other few things that are still bothering me is the no Netflix HD support, that rather pointless macro lens, and then although I maintain it's very good for a rugged phone, it's still much bulkier than your average phone. That all being said, if I was to go back in time and have a phone like this available, this would be the sort of thing that I would have absolutely leapt at. It's a really good all-rounder, especially for the price. So if you want a phone that you can just chuck in your backpack and not really care too much about, and trust that it's going to be safe but also perform in the real world, this is going to be a great option for you. If you care about absolute top-notch displays and Netflix in high definition, then this phone probably isn't it. Links and discounts will be in the pinned comment for this. Let me know what you think of the Oukitel WP210, and check out my next video in the top left or right hand corner now.